All right, Mr. Gutierrez, we have a quorum if you want to get started. It's 2:00. I believe you're muted.
Yes, indeed. Ready to get started. So we start here with a call to order.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Amanda Salas.
Present.
Jacob Gutierrez.
Present.
Dale Turner.
Here.
Pete Garduno. He is absent. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do have a quorum.
Okay. Can I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Great.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Right
Aye.
on. Motion carried. And so now we have public input.
Mr. Chair, we have no public input today.
Right on. Okay. Discussion items, New Mexico demographics research, additional information on the redistricting maps, showing where the changes were made per district. I had a chance to go over them too. I'm sure you did too, Amanda, correct?
Yes, I did.
Danielle will put that up now so we can take a look at it. And I believe Bobby is on. I don't see Rod on. Are you there, Bobby?
Both are there.
Is Rod there as well?
Yeah.
I'm on and Rod is on also, yes.
Very good. If you want to get started on going over that, those changes. Rod?
Rod, I think you're muted.
Oh, shoot. I'm on.
Okay, there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think they're pretty much self-explanatory, and I think it's great. Everybody's had several days to look at them closely, and so I guess the better thing to do would just be to see if there's any questions about them.
Is anybody? Oh, there you go. Amanda, you got any questions?
Not right now.
How about you, Dale?
No, I don't have any.
Okay.
I understand that.
Yeah. I saw what you did. Like people move I saw the movement from 1 to 4, 2 to 3, 2 to 3 twice, and then 3 to 4. So, I mean, I could see where you were moving all the people and stuff. It seems all right to me.
Yeah, there wasn't any. There weren't any glaring issues like there are, with some. Like I just went through with the neighboring county, where there's, it's kind of inexplicable to me. There's a certain county where, for example, they have a major Indian minority that, for whatever 10 years ago, was drawn into a county commission map that only had like 36% non-Hispanic Native American. Very easily, I made a new county commission district that's 45%. So I have no idea why whoever did the map on that county 10 years ago left so many minority voters on the table and put in all kinds of Anglo and Hispanic voters and so on and so forth, where it didn't have to happen. That's a typical kind of problem that you might encounter in redistricting. But as I think I touched on before with regard to the city of Espanola, the city of Las Vegas, those kinds of things don't really exist. So all you're really looking at is ways in which you can make representation equal across the board for the 4 wards, the 4 districts, and
So
you don't have any challenges with minority group rights or Voting Rights Act, things like that, and so that's pretty much what we're left with.
All right. I'm just looking here. I just noticed like when you did it all though, you took a lot from Ward 2. They didn't get anything. I mean, I'm just pointing out that
Depends on the plan. Which plan are you discussing?
Plan A.
Plan A. Yeah, not very many, really. I think maybe 201 people out of a city of 10,000, more than 10.
201 plus another 38 that were
Yeah.
annexed, right? Yeah.
Well, that's a completely different issue, but yeah, 201 out of a city of 13,000. There wasn't a huge disparity in the size like you find with a lot of cities and counties. So it was a relatively small movement of people. If you're going to go with the kind of a least change approach.
Yes. Okay.
And of course, a consideration always with every county and city is that unless there's some direction from the city council or the county commission or the school board, otherwise, then you want to show the incumbents continuing to represent their same districts, especially in municipalities in New Mexico where there's no such thing as term limits. Doesn't matter in counties. It doesn't matter, especially if they're in the second term, because the district can go anywhere you want because it really doesn't matter to the incumbent. But for cities, understandably, the incumbents are keen on not being districted out of the people they represent.
Yes, sir. And then that's what's the one that's up right now is the what is this one? Oh, that's from Plan A, right? Yep.
Okay, so it looks like Plan A, Ward 3 is the one that got the biggest increase.
Yeah, it was Ward 3.
Okay, so per census, I would imagine that Ward 1 and Ward 4 had a little bit more people in per se the previous census. Is that kind of the way that you gauge the movements?
Let me go around and look and see what it worked. Actually, it looks as though it was wards 2 and 4 that were both about 7.5% or so away from the ideal.
Okay.
Those are the ones under the current situation are out of the allowable deviation.
Okay.
What does Plan B give us that's different than Plan A?
I believe Plan B is the perfect plan. Let me see here.
But that that perfect plan requires a lot of unperfect work too, right?
It would require the city clerk and county clerk to work together to ensure that precinct parts are made, additional precinct parts are made so that the right people get the correct ballots. Yes, but I mean, a lot of people want to see how a city would look if everybody had exactly the same level of representation.
Oh, I got you.
Okay, so there's really no changes that you made per se on Plan B.
Oh no, Plan B has huge numbers of changes.
Okay, let's go ahead and review that.
Well, they're just enormous. Because the goal of a perfect plan is simply to keep moving precinct parts or census blocks in such a way as to achieve no deviation at all between the different districts. And Danielle, I suppose, is presenting Plan B in detail right there, just to show you how detailed the census block movements are. I appreciate that, Danielle.
If I can jump in a second, Rod, where you guys see those district numbers, and below that it shows like 0%, 0%. Those are the deviations. So on this map, you've got no deviations between population. If you go back to Plan A and look at those deviations, you'll see them higher, where Rod has just adjusted the districts, the minimum amount to keep them within the legal deviations.
Mhm.
What is the extra work that B entails that A doesn't?
What it entails is there are probably total number of precinct blocks touched to move everything, probably 30 or 40 precinct blocks throughout the city had to be switched, had to be moved into one district or the other. And so what that means is if this plan were adopted, I would have to provide the city clerk and actually the county clerk, who's has a huge role in local elections as well, in city elections, with the exact precinct, with the exact census blocks that make up the new precinct parts. That is what the extra work would be. It would be extra work for the county clerks principally, and the city clerk to an extent as well.
So on A, you don't have to inform them or do anything like that, like you do B?
You do. I do. The difference is that it's a tiny number, relatively small number of precinct blocks, as opposed to more of a wholesale movement back and forth.
So I know that we're on a short timeline to get this approved and moving forward. How feasible is Plan B at the time frame that we're in right now?
I mean, it's feasible. It's just, I mean, it can be done in the time frame. It's just more work. I'm pretty sure that both the city and the county clerk would probably oppose Plan B. They usually do oppose those kinds of changes.
Was there not a Plan C that we never got to the other day?
You should have a Plan C with you.
How many changes are there in that one?
Probably a similar number to Plan A. Just tried on Plan C. I tried to make the boundaries pretty readily, clearly identifiable features, major streets, and or bodies of water or something like that.
It does appear that Plan C is a little bit more proportionate.
Yeah, that's kind of the way you go. You go with the least change, a theoretical perfect plan by population, and then something that looks a little bit blockier, that doesn't look like a gerrymander or like snaky and all that. You want it to look better, cosmetically at least.
So like Ward 4 actually crosses Grand Avenue, which they didn't have anything on the other side of Grand Avenue before.
And it took away the north end of 4 also,
Mhm.
kind of like it did in B, actually.
Right.
To me, it looks more like C and B match each other. I don't know about moving and everything, but they look
Mm-hmm.
similar in design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it has Ward 4 has part of East Pecos Commerce Street. That used to be Ward 3.
Right.
I mean, it's a very unusually shaped city.
Yeah.
And I don't know the ins and outs. I mean, I don't know, the same thing happens in every single city. If you go to Gallup, Roswell, Artesia, Espanola, all those, they all have places that I don't know why the city councils won't go ahead and annex certain things and make the place look, Roswell has complained for like 30 years about not reaching 50,000. They could reach 50,000 overnight if they would just annex huge chunks of land that's already more or less within the de facto city limits.
Right.
And so they're their own biggest problem. And
do you happen to have income ratio information for these wards?
No. But the Census Bureau does gather income and education and numerous other things. I mean, the Census Bureau is part of the Department of Commerce. Now, ostensibly, they will, if you get on their mailing list, they will flood you with more information than you can possibly ever absorb. That's supposed to be helpful to business and to be those people who are like, if somebody's thinking about bringing a franchise restaurant or hotel or some sort of chain into Las Vegas, then they use enormous amounts of census data on lifestyle and education and disposable income and the locations for that, geographically integrated, and so on. That's supposedly, I mean, the Department of Commerce sees that as their mission to help business and individuals make determinations like that. So if you get on their mailing list or email list, you'll be overwhelmed with data like that. They do provide information like that in what they call their community surveys.
Mm-hmm.
They can tell you what the typical resident of Las Vegas, the average number of years of school completed, the average income, and all of that.
Right. So sometimes some of these shifts for some of these wards can cause issues as far as for funding for schools, grant funding. And I don't know if it would make any shifts at this point without that information.
Yeah, I don't think any of this would affect any of the school funding.
Okay.
You have two school districts, partially within the city limits and partially outside, both of them. And that's a separate issue entirely. Their populations are greatly exceed the city of Las Vegas.
Mhm.
You have Las Vegas City Public Schools at 12,650. And you have West Las Vegas at 9,741. So their combined number of people who live within those two districts is a little bit over 22,000, whereas the city is only 13,000 plus. On that note, if you're interested, I mean, in New Mexico, and they could have decided to, I don't know if your school board members in either West or the city, which I guess you'd call the Robertson district in a way. I don't know if they're divided into districts or not. They may have years ago, or they may be elected at large. Under New Mexico law, you do not have to have school district elections unless you have greater than 16,000 people living within your school district, and neither one of the Las Vegas school districts has that right now.
So,
I'm sorry.
oh, no, it's okay. Go ahead, Bobby.
I was just going to say, Rod, I think that the Plan C is largely along precinct boundaries. Is that correct? It splits the precincts the least.
Yes, it's back to doing that, whereas Plan B splits much more.
So those small numbers you see within the white box, those are the county precinct numbers. And just the reason I was bringing that up is that might mean that this map is not as much work as Plan B, because the county clerk and the city clerk would be able to follow the precinct boundaries to a pretty great extent.
Right. I do like Plan C for the fact that it is a little bit more proportionate. All the wards kind of are a little bit more evened out, seems like. For Ward 4, it just does cross part of the section that it didn't have before. And it could be a little bit more of a challenge for whoever is in, Ward 4 for the counselor. As far as it's a little bit more of the income is a little bit, it's more of the poorer part of Las Vegas. So there might be a lot of road issues, a lot of issues that may occur. There may be additional work and challenges for that. It's not as equally proportionate as far as income would be. Any other additional information you guys can provide us?
What do you have in mind?
I don't know if you guys were doing the presentation, so I thought maybe if there's anything else that we're missing or any other additional information that might help us make our decision a little bit easier.
Well, the presentation is as you see it. It's there's not a lot of issues with the city of Las Vegas. Like I say, you don't have any of the things that confront, say, the legislature in drawing fair lines for the state house, for the state Senate, or for U.S. Congress. Your city does not face any of those issues at all. It's just a straightforward, and there's several cities like that in New Mexico. It's just a straightforward division of the population into equal parts so that you comply with the one person, one vote principle. So you don't really have a very difficult or complicated task in front of you. And some cities do, and some counties do,
Mm-hmm.
and certainly the legislature does
Oh, yeah.
for their three things.
So how do we proceed here? We just pick one? We move on? We make a recommendation?
Well, I don't know what your charge is or what kind of ordinance created your committee and what kind of instructions are contained within that. So
Yeah. Well, I
that's
got here on the directions here.
Mr. Chair,
Amanda, huh?
this is Cassandra.
Yeah.
So basically, we needed Rod to present this information to you in as much detail as he could. And then from there, the committee would need to make a recommendation, and that's the second item, or the business item that's next, is that you would then make a selection of one of the three that you would then recommend to the council on Wednesday, Wednesday's meeting at 4. So, if you want to discuss it further and amongst yourselves and then make a decision. I don't know if you have any more questions for Rod.
I'd just like to say thank you for your information and coming back a second time. And I think in my side here, I'm ready to go with the decision.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. Just want to make sure that you have all the data that you need. Sorry, getting a call there.
That's all right. But we appreciate it, and I think we're ready to go. I'm ready to go. I don't know about the other ones, but I'm ready to go with it.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Adair, for making the changes to make things a little bit clearer for us. I think that you answered pretty much all of our questions, my questions for sure. And I think that I'm ready to make that decision as well.
Thank you. Your question was a really good one the other day, and it's something that I should have provided. And I'm happy to go back and make those, show where those changes were. It was really good. It's helpful to me as well as to you, I'm sure. I appreciate your input.
All right. Ms.
If you're all
Velasquez.
ready, you can move to the next, the business item, which is discussion and selection of one of the 3 redistricting proposals for the 4 city council districts developed by New Mexico Demographic Research that will be recommended to our mayor and council on the November 3rd meeting. If you want to discuss it further, or if somebody wants to make a motion for one of those plans.
Well, I think we need to. I know where I sit. I'm not sure where the other ones sit. I guess we ought to just kind of discuss and say where we sit and why.
Certainly.
Right on. I'm looking at Plan A because it has the least amount of changes.
I'm kind of going towards C myself because of the way it's blocked off and not. Like you talked about the counselor having to move over on the other side of Grand, the different pits. But most of the problems in that district or things that need to be happening are going to be in that block instead of that District 4 going all the way up to North Las Vegas, where the things that are happening up there might affect more of District 2 or Ward 2. I think that makes a much more sense because things that are happening on the north end of Grand are not necessarily happening on the south end of Grand. But yet in that blocked area, the way it's blocked off in once, it's just a cleaner block, I think, instead of having, you know, a long skinny thing where you got people on both sides that are on different wards, instead of just that block and your neighborhood and the neighborhoods around you are all in that block, instead of having bits and pieces or a long strip down Grand up to the hospital or something.
Right. I'm also leaning towards Plan C. It seems like it's just more equally proportionate, as well as where each counselor resides. There seems to be more of an equal representation, and it's not as big of changes as what Plan B would be. I know that we are definitely on a strict timeline, and I think that Plan B may have been something maybe we could have moved forward towards maybe earlier on in the game, but since we were kind of presented with this right now, I would definitely lean towards 3. And yes, District 4 becomes a little bit more, it becomes widened, but that may not always be such a bad thing, just like Mr. Turner had mentioned. It just seems more equal, more organized, and a little bit easier for everyone, I believe.
I think you're right. And as far as like the other things, like I think you brought up the question of bonding for schools and stuff. The river pretty much decides that, and not the census, but the river and the census too. But
Right.
But I think he's right. I think Rod's right. This is a pretty simple task. I don't think we can go wrong with any of them, because they're all going to represent within that 5% up and down. I mean, the harder one, of course, would be, you know, your best one, because it's 0, 0, 0. But, you know, in this community, what you don't want to do is to have people, so many changes that people go to their polls and they say, oh, you're not here anymore. They're not going to go to the other poll. They're going to say, oh, heck with it, I'm going home then.
Right.
If you change me. So we want to limit that as much as we can. And C probably does a little bit more doing that than A does. But I just think C is a prettier picture. I think it makes more sense. And you know, we don't want to discourage anybody from voting, and we'll just have to get, you know, the city will have to get the word out on the people that have changed and stuff like that. And you know, and the person running is going to have to go to those blocks and say, you're in my ward now. And, you know, it's going to make them work a little harder. And you know, maybe some people are ready to move. I don't know. But I just think C is a prettier picture, and I like it. And I think that's the one I would go with.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, a lot of times now you can vote either East schools or West schools, one of the high schools, and it doesn't really matter where you vote. You're still going to be able to vote either on the west side or the east side. So it doesn't make it too hard anymore, like it used to be, right? Where we had different precincts.
Yeah.
But it's quite easier now. The only difference is, you know, we're coming upon an election year. Big changes can happen. So you're not too sure who you're going to end up voting for. So I think whichever map we choose, we definitely need to have a little bit more of encourage the city council and the administration to advertise to the public, you know, these are the changes, these are what's happening. Make sure that you're aware of who you're voting for moving forward, so it doesn't affect the election as well.
And Cassandra, maybe you could answer this. Once we make a decision and Jacob takes it to the council, is that correct?
Yes, either he can take it to the council, or all 3 of you or 4 of you can be there. Depends on the group. Once you make your recommendation, remember it's still up to council. They can change their mind.
That was my next question. Now, I guess that's the charter way or the city way, but that doesn't make sense to me, because you got a select committee here of, I would say none of us are running for anything, and I don't think that a counselor should be able to weigh in, make the decision on where he wants to be. I think it should be up to the public, and we're representing the public. I know that's not going to happen, but I don't like that part of it, because I don't think the council should be making this decision, or the mayor, because of that reason. It should be left up to the public, and of course, we haven't had any public input, but we're representing the public.
Yes, and I think I can answer that. So when the charter was created, it did go to the public and they voted on it. So they did know what was in the charter when they voted, and council does make the ultimate decision. So
Oh, no, I understand
Yeah.
that. I do. I just don't, that's one part of this I would probably say, either needs to change or it's just not, there's no checks and balances there. I mean, you can do a lot of backroom deals in there and say, we want this and that, where they may pick a whole different one than we send in there. And then when you go to ask people to be on the committee again next time, and they say, well, why I spent all these hours or whatever, and council's going to go with something they want anyway. Maybe it'd be nice to know if they joined in this meeting what they're liking, so that we would have a sense of where we're headed in this. But anyway, that's just for here nor there. I pick C. If we want to get, if we're going to go with majority, or if not, A's fine too. But my first pick would be C.
Mhm.
All right.
Well, we do hope that we are that the public comment of this committee weighs heavily on their decision making. And that's all that we really can hope for. But we
Yeah.
make the best educated guess that we possibly can. And I do hope that they do take it into consideration on Wednesday evening.
And hopefully we'll have some public input on that day as well at the meeting. So, the public's invited to the meeting, and they're invited. If they don't want to show up in person, they can send in their comments to me, and we'll read those into the record so that the council will know.
And Amanda, are you going to be coming, Dale?
No, you go ahead and represent us. You'll do a fine job. I mean, if it was about just this, maybe, but don't want to sit through a whole council meeting if I don't have to. But I'll be glad to go if you need me to. But I'm fine with you taking in whatever we decide on here. And I don't know if we need a motion to go ahead and vote on what we're going to pick or how we go from here.
How about
Yes,
a motion for Plan C?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to choose Plan C as our recommendation put forth towards our city councilor.
I'll second that.
Right on.
I know,
All in
Jacob, you
favor?
wanted A. You wanted A, Jacob. You have
No. I wanted A, but I'm okay with C. I'm okay with C. I'm fine.
I'm okay with both of them too. I just think C's a prettier picture. I think A's probably a little easier for the people involved, but once they get this done, then we're good for 10 years. So it won't be work, it'll be initial work, but I think after that, Cassandra, it'll fall into place, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So I say I second that on C. And
Okay, all in favor, and then motion carried.
Was everybody in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And I just want to say thank you to the committee, because I know, like I said, there was a very short window and you didn't have much time to go over these plans. So I'm sure you took most of your weekend going through them in detail just to see, to break it down. And I also thank Rod, because he had a very short time, and Bobby to get this done. And actually they had to do it twice. So
well,
Rod.
You and Danielle too. You guys did a wonderful job, and I appreciate you guys and the other members of the committee, Amanda and Jacob and Gilbert. I'm not sure, is Gilbert there? And but anyway, I enjoyed it. I'm glad we came up with something, and I think Rod is right. I don't think we can go wrong with any of them. I think we had a pretty easy decision, but I just think we picked a cleaner one. And you guys have a wonderful day, and anything else you guys ever need from me, just don't hesitate to ask.
Need a motion to adjourn if you're done?
All right, motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
I second.
All right, all in favor,
Aye.
and motion adjourned. We're adjourned. Motion. Hey, Cassandra, I had a question to ask you on the side.
Sure.
My question is the cannabis. So I can put input into the ordinance for the
Yes.
cannabis ordinance?
Yes, so that ordinance is going to go forth to the council